be our friend? Is the internet going to be our friend? Let's check this out. Bear with, bear with, bear with. Let's have a look, see. Ah, here you go. Yeah, it's going to be different things. So do comment below throughout. So let's have a look. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. So a guide to women for men. I'm just going to give people who are joining and watch this later on the background to this. So this is when the first ever Good Vibes stream that we did. It was meant to be my mother. I want a husband who just likes talking off screen, but he's wise. So that's why I got him involved. And we ended up doing lots of real talk and putting it online. So in, I think, February 2017 or earlier, we did a guide to men for women. And the lovely, lovely Alex, who is on screen here on Instagram Squad, but and you can see and hear her, but here with the YouTube live, you can hear her off screen. A guide to women. And I'm not bad mind, so we're going to keep the same questions and this that were asked. Okay? Oh.
This is my internet.
Hi. Hello.
Hello. Okay. I just don't know if it was my internet or yours.
No. What's cool? We never know with this thing. It's Insta is a Bermuda, and what I give thanks for is that it's happened to household names as well as us, irrespective of the broadband.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's do this. So, same questions that were asked 3 years ago. We'll be talking about relations from a woman's perspective. The way we communicate or don't with men or some who are boys, and the perceptions versus the realities.
Yeah.
So please comment below, everybody. Share this video. If we can get to questions or read your comments, we will. So basically, first question. I read a few years ago that women have sex to find love and men pretend to love to get to the sex. What do you think?
How does one word? I don't even know where to. Do we have time?
You take your time. We don't right. Take your time and land.
Okay, so women have sex to find love. Was that the statement?
So basically, women. I might be not remembering everything, but the gist was women have sex to find love, and men pretend to love to get to the sex.
Okay.
Lyrics.
Okay. It could be. Do you know what? With love, right? I'm going to detach love from sex just for a minute, very, very quickly. With sex, it's become something, and I was, I had this thought in my head this morning, like it's become something that people have just stripped it of all the things that kind of surround it and literally have just made it this physical act. They've removed any emotion, any spirituality, the mind, like the build up to the actual action itself, and they've just made it this physical concept, right? And they think that because it's a physical act, they can just do it and there's nothing attached to it. You know, you get a lot of men saying, oh, we can sleep with as many women as we want and we don't feel anything towards these women, and that's fine. Whereas you guys, you sleep with a man and you fall in love with him, or you develop feelings for him. So I think anybody that does that removes everything that's attached to sex is doing themselves a massive disservice, because automatically you're denying yourself the beauty of what that is. It's meant to be an intimate act. It's meant to be something that you look forward to. It's meant to be something that develops you as a person. It's meant to be something that allows you to connect with somebody else. It's a very intimate moment. So in terms of women having sex to find love with somebody, I can understand that concept, because I think that there's a level of intimacy that you build by sleeping with somebody if, when you have sex, you are fully open. But a lot of people, if they're honest with themselves, don't fully submit to the process or submit to to the action, I think that there's still these restrictions. That's why you're able to sleep with so many people. And so, and I think that, you know, falling in love with somebody, having love for someone is one thing, falling in love with somebody else. So I can see how when somebody has sex with somebody and they fall in love with you, because it's meant to be a euphoric experience. As for the other part of what you said, men pretending to fall in love in order to get sex.
So in terms of who is deceiving themselves, because for me, when you're reading all of these things online and all the beef and the attacking of between the genders, men and women, a lot of it, as we've talked about before, is about hurt. Always, you don't get too much detail, but you get attack. So for me, I think I tell expectation of men to seed, date, sleep, hit and run. They might not be doing that consciously. Some might not be present. Yet, there's some who are conscious and they fully love in that moment. The lyrics, the chase, the holding on to, the jealousing if you're dating elsewhere, the loyalty expectation, while they won't tell you when you ask, are you sleeping with anybody I know? No. Yet their friends will enable that bad behavior in men and women if it's outside their circle. It's what I'm talking about. So that whole kind of, it's a pretense. I took that, that's what I took it to mean, but sorry, go on.
Yeah, but even within the pretense, wouldn't you I feel like as human beings, we have a simple life, ultimately. Living a life that is full of deceit is not straightforward. You're actually complicating things for yourself for whatever reason, because you want to boost your ego. Like you said, there's something meticulous about a man that thinks this in this kind of way. So what you're doing is you're overcomplicating a situation. It's just like when you've told many lies. You have to do everything that you possibly can to keep those lies afloat. That is draining. And
cover your tracks with your enablers and your circle to not have accountability for it.
Right. That's another key word, accountability. So I think that for some people, they use the pretense of love to get what they want without having to hold themselves accountable and stare in the face and actually face why it is that maybe they won't allow themselves to be vulnerable enough to experience love. There's all sorts of background reasons as to why I can't speak for any particular man in this case, but I think that there is an issue with showing vulnerability. Going back to societal pressures, there's all these pressures for men to go out, like you said, so they seed, but men are not allowed to be vulnerable. Then they're just not, unfortunately, and love and vulnerability are seen as synonymous. So I can understand the detachment from love in regards to men and showing that side. Because how many men do you know who seem quote unquote hard outside, but you speak to their partner and they're like, oh my gosh, he's such a lovely guy, he's really nice, but he can't have this persona outside.
Because what you're right is to separate the different ones, because they're life and straightforward, but their actions are complicated when they're not aware of it, because if it's how it's received. It might not be, but it's how it's received. And there's too young to grow, too young to know. How is it? It's like too young to grow. They're too. Basically, he's saying too young to know better, too old to just break free and run. And it's too. And I love that line. I've remembered it since '94. It's just an amazing lyric. And it's things. When you experience or when you read it, it's like, oh, you want to share that, but that person doesn't want to hear it. So I think there's nothing wrong with desire. There's a difference between infatuation and love. But I think people assume it's nobody's business what you do with your body, who you are. If you're not harming yourself and that person and the other person, and it's consensual, it's not anybody's own. But when the deceit you talk about, so that thing about, because I said in the other video with my husband there, I was like saying, I lost my virginity at 23. But there's an assumption in what's projected, the way we dance, the way we move our body, the way we carry ourselves. You know, you smile and it's invitation. It's a kindness. You're friendly, it's a kindness, this kind of stuff. The misunderstanding and assumption made when it's not even your world. So I was like, there's difference in how you're raised. It's good to know. But people, is the reason why I said about 23, you have about who you have as an influence. My uncle's back home. You see what I mean? That kind of, and then you come over here and it's a kind of freedom in a sense, but you still know yourself. Being selective in who you date. And I think there's an assumption because you're this, you're that. I don't know how to summarize it. It might be 23. You're selective, allowing ready. Some men are not ready. They think they're men, they're boys, in a sense. And there's some girls are immature and they think that they're women. But at the same time, we did this for the communication, understanding each other better.
Yeah, comprehension. Because a lot of people are talking, we talk all the time, but do you really understand what somebody else is saying when they're speaking to you? And I think something else that I'm going to be speaking about is the art of listening, because I thought I was a good listener, but clearly I wasn't, because something that comes with being a good listener is asking questions. Because if you ask questions, you don't leave room for assumption. Otherwise, you say something to me, I think I've understood what you said, but I didn't ask you any questions. So now, even though you've told me information, I might relate what you said to what somebody else has told me in the past and put those two situations together when they're totally different. So I think also it's important for us to question all the time ourselves. That doesn't mean that you doubt yourself. That just means you're understanding yourself better. If something doesn't make sense to you, question it. If you feel a certain way and it's foreign to you, question it. That's fine. Like, you'll get to the root of it doesn't even have to be a problem, but you'll get your answer if it's not immediately available to you as well. So
it's good.
Sorry.
No, go on. Sorry, there's a delay. So speaking of active listening, we can't do this with internet cutting. Sorry. Go.
No, I'm just saying, like, during this time, it just reminds me how simple life can be and how simple life ultimately is. But it's us that complicate things. I think that there's a lot of things that are seen as complicated and they really don't need to be. They don't need to be.
True. There's what's it called? The reason why I like that phrase, because I was thinking, who does this? But now seeing the endless debate in all communities, men and men, men and women, women and women, all the different groups, and there seems to be the same constant in when women have sex to find love and men pretend to love to get to the sex. Now, I agree with it. It's like a blanket statement, but I thought, why did someone? And I wish I could remember who to give that credit to. I'll have to look it up. My thing as well is very interesting when because, as I said, there is nothing wrong. It's people's bodies. Do what you want with it, as long as you're not harming anyone. But it's for example, love, lust, desire. People's sex because it's a quick fix, or they want the intimacy, or they've received such bad traumatic news. There's a series called Queer as Folk, and I remember there was just come from a funeral, and two of the guys had sex because it was just something quick to unload the spiritual burden of the other. Still be celibate, but it's not about a need to do it, because you can be celibate, you can keep to yourself.
That was like a one-off, that's
but the judgment still stays, because as you say, people project their own insecurities, and I think double standards. Right, the next one, staying in tune with the video we did years ago. Question 2, have you experienced dating or as a woman?
What's the day today? It's today Thursday.
Yes, apparently. It looks like it's like a casino mentality. The days are into each other.
Today's Thursday. So
yes.
It's the year 2020.
Yes.
Because that's all I can say about that. Yes, double standards. And even when you trace it back, like from childhood, there's like this separation between what a girl should do, what a boy should do in the workplace, how you should conduct yourself, and how men can get to conduct themselves. Because I remember one of my kind of first postgraduate jobs, I was the only female in the office, And boy, oh boy, did I learn quickly how to deal with sarcasm, sexual jokes, all that kind of thing. In the beginning, I didn't say anything. It was awkward as hell. Like, it was really, really awkward for me. But I just thought, let me not say anything, because if I trip up and I say something, then that will give them even more ammunition. So as they were talking, I just ignored them. But over time, I become witty and respond, back to them. But, I was young, and these men were like in their late 30s, 40s, like early 40s or late 40s, that kind of thing. And they were like chastising a girl in her early 20s, or a young lady in her early 20s. And I was supposed to cope with that. So, and I did. But, why is it that there's a separate threshold or standard for women that there is for men? Sorry, men, this one isn't for you, this one is for us.
Take notes.
So yeah, no, there's definitely a double standard. Even when it comes to things like marriage, who do they put in a Nigerian household? Like, even if it's not your parents, you get the extended family members. You might have a brother who's the same age as you, a bit older, a bit younger. They won't harass him, but you as the woman will be, you as the girl, you will be the one that's harassed, or what's wrong with you, or your looks are gonna fade, this and that, your market will spoil. There's like an expiry date attached to women that there isn't attached to men, as well. And of course, these are all social constructs.
Yeah. Some
of it may be to do with a woman's body clock. Okay, fine, fair enough. But not all women are going to have children anyway. So there was more to a woman than her ability to be able to bring life into the world. We know that as well. So is there double standards? Yes. And
bear with us while the internet allows Alex back to speak. Hi. I heard you after
This has been an experience, honestly.
No, I know everyone's going through the same thing, but you were talking about, yes, there are double standards, and you cut out for 2 seconds.
So yeah, the double standards, unfortunately, they're not going to go away anytime soon. And I just have to, as I'm going through life, unlearn and remove myself from the double standards that I'm being held to, and make sure that moving forward, I teach to my siblings, to my kids, so on and so forth, that you are more than what society thinks of you, or society tells you to be an individual, and ultimately respect yourself and respect others. And if people want to have a one-dimensional view of life, that's their problem, that's not yours. You continue to be the individual that you are.
Very either from a parent, school, employees, relationships. Did you get the sex talk? I did not, but continue.
It's funny you say that. I didn't get an official talk. I think that there was an assumption that I already knew, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So I didn't get the birds and the bees, but I got an assumption. There was an assumption that I already knew how it works, and therefore I was spoken to like an adult about situations. I think I remember being like 10 and starting like my period, and my mum saying, your body's a temple, don't let anybody just come and do anyhow, that kind of thing. All men are dogs. And she gave me some valuable advice. She said, you will be surprised who will try with you. She said that to me. When I was 10, I was just like, but then as I got older, it started to make sense. I was like, wow, Mum, you did not lie. I'm happy that she told me to shine my eyes at 10, because at 10 I don't think I got it, but like once I hit secondary school, it definitely started to make sense to me, that because all of a sudden these nasty uncles will now start to click their eyes and all sorts. Honestly, Mum, thank you. I appreciate that advice. But yeah, I something else that kind of came up a lot was cheating. Cheating kind of came up a lot.
In terms of the parental advice?
Yeah, so I think it was more so, you know, when you want to talk, but you don't want to expose somebody.
No, don't do that. Don't bait them up.
So I think cheating was definitely something that kind of came up quite a lot. I wouldn't, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's leave that at no comment. Okay. What's it called? But it's interesting because the sex talk is not a talk. But in hindsight, I realized why we were kept in the compound back home, and it was only family gatherings. And you know, there's a reason why I'm so thankful that at 23, after uni, is when you're kind of open to it, and someone is eyeing, and that's why it's like long-term relationships. One blip, but long-term relationships. Do you see what I mean? It's so it's that formative years and the formative training, but at the same time, the downside is like details.
Yeah,
do you see what I mean? Later down the line.
Details are spared. That's the thing. They kind of dance around the subject, but they don't actually tell you what it is and what it means. Like at this age, I still wouldn't feel comfortable going to talk to my mum about things. Because that relationship wasn't necessarily established when I was younger. Yeah. So it was, you know, if you can't go and talk to a parent, ultimately you're going to get the answers. It's where you're going to get the answers from, isn't it? Yeah. So that's why I'm always for sex education in school. I know that, again, because people remove everything concerning sex and just have the physical act, once they hear the word sex education, they think that their kids are going to be taught about. That's not true necessarily. Everything is age appropriate, and there is so much more that we know comes with sex. Because with sex comes responsibility, and if you don't teach your kids about responsibility, then you enter a wealth of problems. You get teenage pregnancies, you get people having STIs, when it comes to sex, you get people not respecting boundaries and relationships. There's all sorts of things that come with that. So accountability and responsibility are two things that are even more important than the act itself, and they need to be taught, because if you don't teach them, you get a generation that comes up that's reckless. But that being said, I know lots of reckless uncles, but that's for another day. Yes.
So you've answered the that's question 5. Who do you think should initially discuss sex with kids, parents or teacher, and why? I think you've just answered that, unless you want to add anything else.
I know that, you know, most parents kind of, there can be this battle between parenting and schools and the education system. Age appropriately about go zones. That's sex education. You know, like as simple as that. You can watch your no-go zones, you know. You don't need to discuss with other people about your no-go zones. You also need to respect other people's, you know, things like that. Because in primary school, there's a lot of touching. It's not intentional, but kids don't know. They're interested, they're intrigued. So if you teach from a young age that, then I feel like, and you allow your kids to be open individuals that can form decisions for themselves, it just means that they will be open to come to you and say, oh, Mum, today at school I learned this, and you guys can have a discussion about it, and then you steer it back in the direction that you want it to go. I think anyway, but yeah.
Yes, thank you for that. So we've got, what were you taught in school? You've touched on as well. Is it different to your experience?
In school, I mean, I don't remember being taught a lot. I remember put it this way, I didn't really learn a lot about the female anatomy until I became a science teacher. So put it that way. I really didn't know a lot about female anatomy. And so I feel like for me, becoming a science teacher made me make my lessons go all inclusive and have this open dialogue with people, with my students as well. It just kind of creates kind of safe space for them, because I definitely didn't feel like I had that when I was at school.
I had, in primary school, we were shown rabbits mating. The only time of thinking about it is what, aged, I don't know, 14 or 15, being shown rabbits mating. We're like, what's this? Whilst in real life, outside of the the classroom, we knew about 4 girls who were pregnant already, but not linking the 2 of them because too busy with facing books, sleepovers with same sex, our friends, no boys, you know, but you had the rolling up of the skirts and stuff, all these things. So it's like, I was too busy just like being a kid to be thinking about all of them. Also not, you know, not every parent or guardian knows what's going on outside of school. And then also, but I do remember thinking there should be condoms in school because it's kind of, the teacher was embarrassed talking about it. This is like, well, why aren't there condoms in school? So, but anyway, that was at the time. So next question. I think you've actually shown, question 6 from the previous video following on is, at what age should you explain the anatomy, body, growing pains of a girl and woman, and how would you do it? But you were talking about just now about, you had to find out for yourself later.
Yeah, you know, it's important for you to call the body parts by their actual names. So
agreed.
And we love to, and I had an episode on this actually last year on the podcast.
Check it out, people.
I can't remember what episode number it was now, but we definitely talked about the importance of teaching, you know, kids the actual names, refer to its breast, refer to its penis, refer to its vagina.
Agreed.
Because that's what they are called. You know, we don't change the name of our hearts. We don't change the name of our brain. We don't change the name of our feet. Why do you change the name of the sexual organs? Is it because they're sexual organs? No. You've already started to plant the seed that sex is this taboo, negative thing, something you can't talk about because you're not calling it what it is. At the end of the day, call it what it is. And then also that helps you in terms of grooming. So if you tell your child that their private part is called a vagina, and somebody else who wants to potentially groom your child calls it, something else, calls it a kitty cat, and your child starts to call it their kitty cat now, you're going to say, why are you calling it that?
Very good point.
And say, oh, so-and-so told me it's called that. Then you can then pull up that person and say, why are you talking to my child about their vagina?
Very good point.
Quickly. So please call it what it is. Tell them that these body parts are totally fine, totally normal. Because for the most part, they're just there. They're not. People make it seem like people are having sex all the time. No, you're not. You live life. You eat. You drink. You sleep. You go to work. You go to school. So they serve other purposes and other functions as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Please remove that.
That's such.
Shame.
Sorry.
Oh no, I just said just remove that shame attached to it. Yeah.
That's such a valid point that I've never thought of, but you've just actually expanded it, because I always thought just call it as it is, because it's gynecological and it's a base term, and that's a perfect way of putting it, because for that anti-grooming, online grooming, predators within the family, predators who, you know, what's it called? People wouldn't think of. And then, you know, that shame. And also, if you're keeping it, as you just said, taboo, using taboo vocabularies and pet names and keeping it secretive, it lies into that. And it would lead to shame, and it will lead to a lack of justice. And people are enabling predators and pedophiles and stuff like that. So that's very valid point. Thank you. Perceptions versus reality. We welcome your comments below as well, your experiences, everybody. What are the main misunderstandings that men have about women, in your opinion, and or of those that you know, or observation?
Okay. That women are just emotional, and that that being emotional is a weakness. So when men, this is what I've kind of grasped, that they see being emotional as a weakness. So nowadays you get this word floating around called emotional intelligence, and a lot of companies will tell you that they want somebody who's emotionally intelligent, and that means being sympathetic or empathetic to other people, and therefore being able to act appropriately in that situation. Weak. I've always thought it shows great strength if you're in touch with your emotions, knowing how to control them, but knowing what they are. So if I asked you right now, how do you feel? You'd be able to say more than just happy or sad or angry. You know, you might say, I feel a bit anxious. You know exactly how you feel at any given time. That to me is being emotional. People have kind of talked more about humans being spiritual and not just the mind and the body, that there is more. Even if you don't believe in spirituality, we have energy. So you're not going to tell me energy doesn't exist. If you go into a room and it's
force field,
you rebuke it, exactly. So I think that that's a negative connotation attached to women, that women are emotional, and that women are irrational. You know, they kind of do things based off of tests.
Okay.
So to find out who, there's like 16 main personalities. So I found that I'm introverted, which makes sense. That's why I'm not suffering during this time. I'm really not suffering. I can't feeling or I can't remember what the opposite word. I think it's sensitive, feeling or sensitive. Now these words aren't literally what what their literal words are. It's more so I go off of in a moment. If I'm dealing with a person, I go based off of how that feels with that person, if that makes sense. I say, well, no, there's all for one, and that's it, simple as. So that would be the opposite of what feeling is.
Well, apathetic.
Yeah. And I don't think that that's a bad thing, whether you are one or the other. And there are women who don't go off of feeling, it's a one for all. So again, boxing us as women, there isn't. Yeah. I
like that. I think there's perceptions versus reality in terms of, in my experience, for me, for private, and we'll discuss online one of these days, but trust me when I know firsthand, I've had so many answers given to me about, and I realize, because I know myself and my base, that I'm high functioning, that I'm very empathetic, very, very rational, and made of. And a lot of things have been, I always ask a lot of questions, I'm detail orientated, but it's to make sure, clarifying every point to make sure we're on the same page. And what I've realized, like yourself, to unlearn, because a lot of things, people have no self-awareness, and I am super aware, but I will stay quiet because I don't want to make that person who thinks I can't see their effery and their bad mind, I don't want to make them cry, and I don't want to stoop to their level. Little petty comments, the little insecurity projection that you were talking about, the resentment energy you can feel. You can feel an energy. I'm very direct. I've asked employers, I've asked partners, whatever you have a problem with, tell me, and I will tell you whether it's me or whether it's you, and we'll talk about it. I've had head on, I don't want conflict, but I've said to an employer, can we talk? Yes. And literally said, what is your problem with me? Oh, nothing. They obviously have a problem. The women that you work with, the different kind of interactions, the sociopath bullies, the women the ones that you've been there, you've not said, acquaintances, friends, family, strangers, you've not said one bad word, but all of a sudden they've met the alpha male or female, and it's a sudden change, because I realize they don't need an excuse to dislike you. It's their own insecurities or wanting not to be the target or the scapegoat. Hence my strength.
Wanting not to be the target. Yes, that is something else. Like you said earlier on about like projection. Sorry to cut you off.
No, go for it.
I like that way, because deflection is very, very real. It's
deflection.
Like, you know what? I feel less than in this room. I don't want someone to come and pick up on me, and therefore if I can deflect onto somebody else and join in, is that men will say in terms of derogatory things towards women, and then you see other women join in saying these derogatory things as well to another woman, and I'm just like, it's one thing for men to say it, but for you as a woman to say it, come on, like, you know exactly how that feels. You'd be mortified if somebody did that to you, but because you don't want any of that on you, you're going to direct it to somebody else. Now, I'm not saying that as any woman, you have to wave the flag for all women. Of course not. That's not your job.
There's some absolute witches and mitches. Stay over there with your jealousy in the shine. Bye-bye.
Be quiet. Be quiet. If you can't say anything, silence says a lot. If I'm around stupidity and I don't say anything, that doesn't mean I'm enabling the behavior. That's me saying, you know what? And you won't see me again, or I won't join in your conversation again, or when you invite me to this place or space again, I won't answer my phone. Things like that. That's what I think. That's my way of handling it. I don't have to make noise about it or justify it to you. I just don't want any parts.
So it's really well put. I love the way you can give that kind of forensic insight, because for me, that women as well go through a lot of this. And there's that, everyone has, I always say this, everyone has their good and bad, everybody. But what your default setting, what your repeat pattern of behavior is where I'll go to. And if you repeatedly offend me and then laugh about it or make a comment, or I see you in public when you're with your people and then you're different when we're one-on-one, there's no need, don't come and say hello to me. Don't come and say hello to me. Don't project your insecurities, sisterhood, all these jealousies. Women will enable the men. I mean, this is meant to be a guide to reaction with each other. Deal with another topic to talk about. Exactly. So same questions as the video uploaded a few years ago. I've got here dating and expectations. What
pressures have I observed from men? I think that there is a pressure to be a traditional.
The Madonna versus the saint versus the sinner, or the expectation.
Yeah, okay, so simply put, you know when people kind of talk and they might be talking about you trying to or give you praise, or they think that they're giving you praise, and they're like, yeah, you're not like other girls. That kind of, there's that kind of thing. And yes, that's true. And like I said, I'm an introvert. I prefer to have my time by myself. But if I was an extrovert and I enjoyed being outside, that doesn't make me any less of a good person.
Yeah,
right?
so
that's just not how. I'm just not built for that life to be constantly out and about. Like, I prefer, I can do it, don't get me wrong, but if you ask me what is my favourite pastime, I just want to be at home chilling, I want to read books, or I want to be out. Yeah, I want to be by, I want to be by myself. I like being by myself. That's how I recharge. Yeah, that's my thing.
Same here, since teenager.
Yeah, that's been my thing. Now, does that make me a good person? Well, I know I'm a good person, but that's not necessarily what makes me a good person. The fact that I'm to myself. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I think that there is this connotation of good girl versus bad girl, and it's like, okay, because you're this way, then certain guys will decide to maybe take you more seriously, as opposed to another woman who goes out and enjoys, and she gets recharged by being in the presence of other people and talking to lots of different people. There's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
Either way, like that's not what makes you a good or a bad person. So I think for me, that's something that I kind of noticed.
To make yourself small.
That makes you good. I think it's a bit silly.
Yeah, it's about making people expect you to make yourself small. Don't be OTT. I know people, I love seeing busting move in the street. That I love seeing people just really express themselves. They're only one on the dance floor and really going for it. I've seen guys, I've seen men and women just really just freedom, and they're the only ones. But really, like, it's the way they dance, and you look around and you just see people watching you all of a sudden, and I'm like, the judgment in their eyes. Why are you here? If you don't want to dance, talk amongst yourself. People just going.
It's the deflection.
That's their own.
Let me join in, because I don't want for people to worry about me. Let me join in. Let me make myself feel more important. Yeah, it's that. And again, if you sat down with yourself, and this is something that I'm going to be talking about in the quote-unquote quarantine series from next week, just spending a little bit of time with yourself, getting to know who you are. Scrap the perception that people have of you. Scrap who you thought you were. Scrap who you are today in April 2020, going through quarantine. you know, being at home, being more exposed to your family or whatever, like having to stare your reality in the face. Where are you? How do you feel? And when you become engrossed themselves is selfish, because I know that some people don't understand me when I just want to be by myself. I think some people don't understand. Listen, it's okay. I haven't got, that sounds like their problem. That's not my problem. I know why I'm by myself. I'm recharging myself, because if I don't recharge myself, I can't be around anybody. I'll be useless and I'll be miserable. So let me have this time by myself. Let me gather my thoughts, and then I can present myself to you, and I'll be.
It's in terms of, I've always been like that. I was told I love my sleep, and I've always been like that since young. But the thing is, it's so good that I have been constant since I was young. My constant, everybody in my life. But then those who don't check for me, I stop. But if it's not work, if it wasn't study, if it wasn't being there for family and friends, I'd be here and back home. But you didn't need much in life, but energy, you needed to refuel, Get the motor running again and be roadworthy.
If I keep it running 24 hours,
Exactly. And just, it's very, very true. And I just like that. Years and years just being single, but realizing that because your mind is occupied with just trying to live, not just existing, living and providing. But that's another thing. The next part of this, what are your deal breakers in a relationship?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
My two main surface ones that I've always said was if you had a baby on me and if you got an STI. And the two of them are slightly different, but I guess one in the same. So with the having a baby on me, I feel like that would break my heart, and therefore that would break my trust, and I'd never be able to take you back, because I'd just be like, you shattered me completely. Like, yeah, I just couldn't. And then as for the STI, you don't respect me. You don't have any respect for me. You don't have respect for yourself, because why would you allow yourself to even put yourself in that position? Because this is the thing, when you're out there in the streets as my partner, you're representing yourself, but you're also representing me. So I expect you to carry yourself in a particular way. So if you're out here and you don't respect yourself, you don't respect me, that's a deal breaker for me. I'm sorry. How you carry yourself outside in the streets represents me. So if I was with somebody that was disrespectful to themselves by not upholding themselves in a certain way. This is not, when I say upholding yourself in a certain way, that's not anything to do with other people's perception. That's to do with you. Because how I step out, unless I had to go to a place where I have to follow a particular dress code, pretty much it's me dressing myself. So how I carry myself based off of me, right? So if I choose not to represent myself in the best light, then I see that as not respecting myself and giving myself the just dues that I deserve. To represent myself in the best light moving forward. I am my lawyer, I am my judge, my jury, my everything. So I need to take this seriously. So it can't work. I'm so sorry.
I think that's always been a deal breaker for me, because I think because I've been very open since young. If it's not for me, religion is not for me. What else isn't for me? If I ask you a direct question and you don't get a straightforward response, I can deal with you not being anyone falling out of love.
Yeah.
It's not by force to stay, but be honest about it. I do not want to hurt anyone's freedom. And also, like you said about your deal breaker, if you're barebacking, you're not an ambassador for our relationship. Go, be happy. It's not by force to be married. Continue. But we'll do another one on that and elsewhere. So those kind of deal breakers. Comment below, everyone, with your deal breakers, like Valentine's Day, splitting the bill for dinner, status, salaries, all of these things. Are there your dating horrors, success stories?
Petty things.
Huh?
Those to me are petty things, I think.
Okay. Well, what's good in terms of surface value, those things.
In terms of surface value, I mean, ultimately, respect is the big, because I always use parents as an example. You can love your parents, but there's a difference between loving them and respecting them. When you love somebody, you might still hurt them. you respect your parents. There are certain things that you'll never say or do to them because of the respect.
Yeah.
Because of the respect that you have for them. And that's the same thing for certain people. There's certain people I may not like, but I respect them. And because I respect them, I would never talk to them a certain way or do certain things to them because I still have respect for them. So before you love me, respect me. And if you don't respect me, like you said, you can fall in and out of love, but I don't believe in falling in and out of respect. Respect should be consistent from start to finish.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That is perfectly put. I love that. And I might what's called mine later. For the YouTube, the internet is buffering. Instagram is live here. YouTube live. Add advice with Alex. Find her podcast. But she literally just said you can fall out of love with her, but you can't fall out of respect. That is for everybody. Everybody out there, no matter the relation. Take that with you. So the last questions, you can say no comment if you want, but just to be fairness, in the video we did last year, do you think girls and women realize the stress and the heartache they cause men, i.e. not giving them a chance for whatever reason, not giving them a chance in the first place, whether it's a sibling, whether it's a relationship, you know, giving them a chance to be themselves, do what they want to do, space in a relationship, whether it's blood or a relationship?
Yeah, I think yes and no. But again, yes, there are some women that are extremely, in terms of society, women are kind of taught to make men chase, don't make yourself easily available, and all of this sends mixed signals. Whereas, like I said, if we go back to making life simple and people being direct with how they feel and not worried about how that will be perceived by somebody else, then you kind of just make life a lot easier. Sorry for the background noise.
Don't worry, I've got mine here.
Yeah, that kind of just makes life easier for everybody. So I think that in terms of women and girls not knowing how they make life difficult for men, I think that women can be aware of how they make life difficult for men. First and foremost, it's about you being accountable for it and saying, you know what, maybe society told me to be a particular way, but I'm not that way. Like for me, I don't believe in all of this making somebody chase or right now. I would literally go on a date and face my date and say, what do you want from me? Are you ready to be serious? No? Okay, I'll carry my bag and go. Because I haven't got time to be playing games with you, to come and get free food. That is not, I've got time to entertain multiple people. That for me is draining, going back to being an introvert. I want to spend time with myself. And you know, if I'm going to spend time with somebody else, it has to be quality time.
Exactly.
So I haven't got time to handle 5 people on the go.
Years single and then long-term relationships, and then you go through stuff and it's your life, but you realize there's so many people wearing masks and they can code switch and they can, as you say, be manipulative and and give everything lyrics in the moment, but actually and be something something one way, but actually the reality, they're not self-aware of themselves. But also going back to what you've just said, women as well as men, actively listen, give each other a chance, but actually don't dismiss it. Hear what's being said to you. Women don't listen. Oh, she didn't hear me. I did tell her what it was. Oh, don't do this in any aspect, but also in terms of how do you say, fathers to daughters, brothers to sisters, uncles to aunts, and any kind of dynamic. Listen, actively listen to what hurt that they're talking about. Not, oh, I thought you understood. No. Did you answer the question? Are you acknowledging the hurt? Are you acknowledging the preference? And talk differently. Be honest so you don't cause any wahala down the road. You know, that should be. So the final one, so the last question asked in the previous Guide to Men for Women, do you think technology and social media has made relationships between men and women better or worse, and why?
Right. I'm going to use my own as an example. For me, I'm indifferent. I don't post my personal stuff on social media. I don't think that, I media, there's become this pressure. So ultimately, I would say that it might have made relationships worse. And the reason I'm going to say it's made relationships worse is this. So I had somebody say to me once, "You never post your partner on social media." I was like, "Yeah, why?" "Well, I don't feel the need to do that. It's fine." And if other people do, that's fine. But that's not something that would come naturally to me. But that extends to all areas of my life. I wouldn't post if I got a new job. I wouldn't post if I got a new car. I wouldn't post if I got a new house. Like, these are just things that I'm like, okay, yeah, I've got these things and I keep it moving. So my partner is no different, if that makes sense. But somebody said to me that it's actually important for you to post your partner because, for example, there was one girl who posted a guy, and then the actual girlfriend came and said, "No, but this is my boyfriend, and this is whatever, and this is that." And I was like, no, that's a headache for me. At the end of the day, first and foremost, whatever you do in the dark will always come to the light. I'm not worried about whether you're cheating or not cheating. It's not me you're embarrassing. Like I said to you before, if you're disrespecting yourself out in the streets, it's not going to take long for it to come back to me, and then we don't have to be together anymore. That's fine, because you don't respect yourself, therefore you don't respect me. But in terms of social media and posting things, I think a lot of people post things for validation. Like the kind of running theme has been throughout this. It's important for you to validate yourself. I know what my partner does for me. I know the fulfillment that I get in my life in regards to other areas as well. I don't need to post that. I don't need other people to validate that for me. So I don't care to post on social media. I don't care for people to keep up with me in terms of what's going on in my life as well. So, yeah, somebody said social media is there to distract people from real life. Yes, it is. It's one of the biggest distractions, Now is the time that people have are like drugs, drinking, smoking, sex, food, social media. Once upon a time, I kind of had a social media addiction. This was 2 years ago, and I went cold turkey for like 3 to 6 months, I think. I read so many books. My mind was so much better. I felt in my life. Now, don't get me wrong, social media is a perfect platform for you to promote things. For example, like we're doing now, we're promoting what's going on with us and talking about really impressing. Yeah, so I'll leave as that. Does social media help relationships? No, for the most part, no, it doesn't.
I really wanted you to go on, and thank you so much for your time. And social media, a guide to women for men. This is going to help social media. We welcome your comments below. I'll put all of Alex's details. I really wanted to go on, but the time, and I think we might get ejected from Insta. Thank you so much, and we welcome your comments. Peace out, and please share a guide to women for men with advice with Alex. Peace, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Hello, beautiful. Hi, King. Hey, Jodami, hiya.